Welcome back, everybody, to the second of this month's Heresy Hammer episodes. I think this is episode 31, and today we have myself, Rob, and we also have Lee as well. Lee back for a second time this month. It's very exciting, isn't it? So if you haven't checked out our other show from this month, we talked all things Legions Imperialis, but we're going back to the Horus Heresy, and we've got quite an exciting show, quite an interesting show. Certainly, the show that we did was £250 for 2,500 points was well received, and we've had a couple of people kind of embark on that journey. So hopefully this will kind of have a similar reception. So today, Lee, what are we looking at? We are looking at can you create an army from two battle groups? Now, we'll go through the ins and outs of it, but we did discuss this kind of last episode, didn't we, Lee? That it's just a great box, to supplement a force, which I think probably most people will buy a box in order to supplement their armies. But we want to kind of take that idea, flip it on its head, and take two of these boxes and see what armies that we can create. So we'll have a look at those. We're looking at three different forces, but just some goings on and heresy news and bits and pieces. So as it's I'm one of the hosts of this podcast, I'm going to shamelessly plug Metas Miniatures. So I was invited a few months ago by Colourful Kraken Studio to take part in their Kickstarter. They are basically creating 3 volumes, 3 books, which are 35 artists have come together to create tutorials for different models within different companies. So there's obviously quite a lot of Warhammer. There's 2 Horus Heresy tutorials in there, Wordbearers, one in volume 2 and a Kratos one in volume 3. I'll talk about the Kratos one a bit more in a second. But these artists are typically top line artists. So we've got people like Jose Da Vinci, we've got Trovarian, I think, who has a big YouTube channel. We've got Mark Maslans in there. So if you know any of Mark's work, you will know he's a true artist. We've got Andy Wardle from Cult of Paint in there as well. We've got some absolutely amazing artists. So I was really lucky to be involved in this project. They needed a tank tutorial, and I said, well, of course, let's do a World Eaters Kratos, because I absolutely love that tank, and I haven't painted it World Eaters Heraldry yet. This is the tutorial that I did. This is the piece that I go through. So I'm in volume 3, and volume 3 focuses on enamels and oils, and it probably goes a little bit more in depth. Will take a little bit longer than volume 2. Volume 2 is all about painting miniatures fast, painting them effectively, and the idea is you can paint a mini in 90 minutes that still kind of holds its own on the tabletop. And I've seen a few of the tutorials, about 10 tutorials so far. All of them are great from volume 1 all the way to volume 3. And the Kickstarter is live now. It was fully funded, I think, in under an hour. But going on there, as we're recording, I think that they wanted £8,500. I think we're on to £65,000 at the moment. So make sure that you go get your copy. I think that probably is worth picking up the bundle deal. That's probably the most effective and cheapest way to do it. But if you want to just exclusively get my Kratos tutorial, which goes into heat effects, goes into weathering metallics, goes into tracks, goes into applying transfers, making it seem like they've not got that kind of ring around it, etc., then I am in volume 3 with other artists like Grimdark Compendium and Sick Willy Miniatures as well, who does some awesome Space Marine, Sons of Medusa Space Marines in this as well. So make sure you sign up. If you just Google, well, I'll put the link below, but if you just Google Colourful Kraken Studio, it will take you straight to the website, will take you straight to the Kickstarter. And on top of that, as kind of like the conclusion, I also go through a couple of other Kratos I've done. So loads of people ask me for my red recipe and how I went about this Blood Angels Kratos, and I give a few tips and pointers, and same with the Sons of Horus tank as well. That appears in the book, and I go through a few kind of pointers about how I went about doing that, and how the same principles with the Kratos can be applied to other Legion schemes as well. So definitely worth picking up.
Cool. Check it out.
Yeah, definitely. It's really, really exciting times. We've got a few tickets left for this event. It's on Saturday, the 18th of November. It's a weekend event. It's going to be really, really fun. You've got to take a Primarch. It's the 3,000 points, nose hole barred. Really, we're really, really going to go for it. Just guys getting together. I think it's going to be quite a relaxed one, this one. But I would describe this more as a tournament than a narrative event. So giving those people who want to play competitively an opportunity to do that. I know there's lots of events kind of on that weekend. Didn't do very good scheduling on that one, but if you do have the time, you are local or far away, then make sure that you grab your ticket. You can grab it through our Eventbrite website, and you can just type in Heresy Hammer Eventbrite, and it will come into Google. We've also got someone else's event. Talked about this last time. So this is an event at Boards and Swords. I went to the last event hosted by them and Battle and Bone. So this one's on the 28th and 29th of October. Not sure if it's sold out, but it was a terrific event. So if they've still got tickets left, make sure you go and check that out. That is in Derby. And also, just to shout out, we didn't spend too long on this last time, but we also have a very thriving Patreon. I think we're on about 175 patrons at the moment. And we'll, in fact, go through our top tier patrons at the end of this show, the friends of the show, as I like to say. And we've got loads and loads of things going on there. So we do a minimum of 2 Tactica shows a month for everybody. We've just finished this month going through all the Knight household ranks and the Dark Blessings that came out in the Battle of Fellweather Keep. So if you're looking at doing Chaos Knights or Loyalist Knights, then go check those out. From as little as £3 a month, and then we have our Centurion level, which is £5 a month, where you every 4 months you get entered into a draw, and you can either have the chance to win a painted Centurion by one of us, or £100 voucher for a shop of your choice. Our most recent winner, Tom, went for the £100 voucher, didn't he? He missed out on lead painting the Centurion. He said, "No, I'm gonna go for the voucher." And that's £5. And then you've got our Pro Tour level, which is £13 a month, and every 6 months we will, if you're subscribed for 6 months, we will send you a goodie bag with bits and pieces in. We're currently in the middle of sending out our exclusive Heresy Hammer miniature that we had commissioned by Will from Diverging Realm Studios. And from what we've seen, people are really excited to be receiving those. We sent out 14, and we've got, I think, another 66 to send out on top of those ones as well. So make sure you go check out our Patreon. It helps us to fund the channel. It helps us to do all these shows as well. And we're just really grateful if you can go check it out. As little as £3 a month. And we think that we're producing the most consistent, I would say, heresy content out there. And we would love for you guys to sign up. What's next? Oh, right. So we've got some absolutely awesome ones featured in our Heresy Hammer today. So I know Lee loves some Wordbearers.
I do love a Wordbearer.
So Iron Hands Miniatures showed this off in the Merchants Princeling Discord. Worth a shout out Merchants Princeling as well. If you don't listen to their podcast, if you don't listen to their podcast, make sure you go have a listen. But Iron Hands Miniatures posted this Wordbearers Rhino. And it's just, for me, it is the perfect scheme for Wordbearers. I really, really love it. It is a metallic scheme. It uses the old Forge World recipe, using like the Carabao Crimson and Tamiya. And I think it looks brilliant. And he's done a bit of a kit bash with the old school Mars pattern Rhino.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't see that much now, do you? I like it.
Not at all. No. But he's come out really, really well. Yeah, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. So he should be really proud of that. Really, really pleased. It's come out brilliant. Lee, do you want to talk about JB painting?
JB painting. This is fucking awesome, isn't it? I was trying to work out. I'm guessing. Oh, it's Tortuga, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was thinking, is that 3D printed? But I think it's Tortuga with some chaosy bits, and I think they're Chaos Space Marine shoulder pads. But again, I fucking love this. It's it's not over the top. It's not Chaos Space Marine 40k over the top. I think he's got it just right. You know, the head's a bit corrupted, but the armor's still a Space Marine. It's kind of perfect, kind of heresy era Wordbearers,
It
and
kind of
they look
reminds me of the
fucking
artwork, like
sick.
the Visions artwork, where you see some of them, like some corrupted word bearers, right? He's and also I think it goes to show that word bearer is a great one for doing it as you do, Lee. A normal acrylic scheme or a metallic scheme, word bearers just work in either one of those places.
Yeah,
That kind of burgundy armor just looks that red wine armor just looks so
it,
good. Yeah, so good. Cool. Let's have
yeah.
a look at our next two. Well done to you guys.
Cool.
So we've got our Rama Mini. So I think Rama Minis have been featured before on the show with his Space Wolves, but I just thought it was worth an amazing shout out because he's done such a good job with this Leviathan Dreadnought for Space Wolves. And what I would say is just so tastefully done as well. I think with this dread, and he's gone to loads of attention to detail, underlining all those chips and scratches. And I think that I'm not a huge fan of snow bases, but I think that this works well. I think it's just nice and effective. It's not too over the top. And yeah, just love the addition of the snow in the uh
I uh, I
touchscreen.
really like this. I like the fact that it's gone with quite a light grey. It gives a real cold like appearance, doesn't it? You get a real
Yeah,
feel of like fuck, it's freezing there, and he's
yeah.
about to. Um, yeah, really good.
Yeah,
Uh,
so well done, Rama Minis. So this one, um, Talkathor. So I saw this, I think, on the Dark Angels Facebook group, but I do follow Talkathor online because you probably saw it when we did our show talking about the Golden Demon entries. Maybe that was our pilot show. I can't quite remember now. But Talkathor, I think, won with a duel or won a Golden Demon of some color with a duel between Lehman Russ and oh god, what's his name?
Magnus.
No, it wasn't Magnus. It was the Lion. I think
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Talkathor.
yeah, yeah.
I think it was Talkathor. Right. If I'm wrong about that, then please correct us in the comments below. But this Dark Angels librarian just rocks. Right. It's such a good use of
Yeah.
this particular body. The head swap, which I assume is a 3D print. I don't think it's converted. I assume it's. I think Dan mentioned that he has the file for it. Um, it's such a good kit bash. Like he's done an absolutely awesome job with this, right?
It's fucking amazing, isn't it? Like, just yeah, yeah. I, I don't really know what else to say, to be honest.
I
It's
don't think there's. I think that
like,
what I would say,
the
one
armor's
of the things I would
insane.
say is that basically, like, it's the perfect head for that miniature. It's almost
Yeah,
like it was designed for that
yeah,
head and not the
yeah.
head that we got. And I think that Dark Angels players will probably see that and go, "Wow, okay, I've got to be using this now." But I think that you could use that head on um, most legions and it would be okay,
Yeah,
right? Like a
yeah.
generic knightly style head.
But yeah,
Cool.
fucking awesome. I love this. It's just
Yes.
so atmospheric. It's
Yeah.
fucking really
Glowing
is.
eyes as well. He's done some great Dark Angel. He did a Spartan that we featured a while ago, which like must have taken him bloody ages, but yeah, it was so
And
good.
it's an interesting use of colours because they're all like there's
Yeah,
no standout bright colour other than the eyes, really, is there?
yeah. No. Yeah, it's all fairly muted. It'd be great to see
In
this in the
theory, it
hand.
should be boring, but it looks fucking amazing.
Yeah, really well executed. Cool. Let's have a look at our final two. So we've got Riff Forge underscore Sean. So we haven't. I don't think we've featured Riff Forge Sean too much, but I know he's part of the Riff Forge studio team, which is who does some creates heresy content, and I think they're kind of like a commission studio, quasi do battle reports, etc. So in the same line of work, similar line of work to us. But Riff Forge Sean has been working hard on his Cabanda model. I think he finally got it done and took it to an event maybe last weekend. So I think it was worth showing because it must be such a hassle to paint that model, right? Like it's so big, so cumbersome.
Yeah.
And he's done a really great job. I think the metallics in particular, I think look really, really cool. And the small flourishes with the blood on on the shoulder
Yeah.
sword or whatever. I don't know what you describe it as, but and then Lee, why don't you talk about Holswain for us and what he's got on offer?
So I love this just because of the simplicity of the model. Like it's just silvers and blacks with a little bit of leather in there, but it's just the perfect Iron Hands model, really, isn't it? It looks fucking brilliant.
I don't know if this is I think this is right. Gabriel Santor, I think, like the first captain of the Iron Hands. I know he's got like a dual lightning course. I don't know if it's
right.
him, but maybe Holzwain could let us know. But yeah, he's done an awesome job with it, right?
Yeah, yeah, it looks fucking brilliant. I'm guessing he hasn't finished the base. I'm not
No,
sure.
I assume
But
not.
yeah, get the base finished because this looks fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, great job.
I assume the chainmail is probably green stuffed as well. It's done a pretty good
Yeah,
job
I'm
with
not
it.
sure. Yeah, I don't know if it's been cut off something else or if it's been green stuffed, he's done a fucking great job of it,
Yeah.
or it's been cut off another model.
Awesome.
Um, but yeah, I find with Iron Hands it's quite hard to do characters because you don't want to go. It's a bit like Iron Warriors. You don't want to go over the top because they're quite like they're not really all about. They're not Ultramarines, are they? They're not about the bling. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's absolutely bang on. Yeah, it looks fucking brilliant.
Yeah, he's done a great job. Yeah, great work. Right. Well, I think that leads us straight into unless I've got another two. Can't recall. No,
Oh,
yes, the Heresy Thursdays.
here they are.
Hallelujah. I mean, man alive. Like we had no idea that these were coming, but Jesus Christ, we desperately needed them, right? I mean, about zero to hero in one release. So if you are new to Heresy, I don't and have been living in a cave, basically uh, the studio team produced some really terrible, like wolf style helmets that I think many people would say are like quite 40k, but I just thought they were just entirely out of place in
Yeah,
the whole
yeah, fucking
scheme of
nonsense. Yeah.
both 30k and 40k. But they were almost comedic, and I think they took a lot of flack for them. I would imagine that they were probably used as booby prizes or like wooden spoon
Well, they
prizes
were.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But on Thursday we had this release, so we had two lots. We had basically updated new Mark 6 heads, which are much more in keeping and fitting with the Space Force aesthetic that we might expect from 30k. But you could definitely be used in 40k as well. And an awesome bear head with that kit. Like I think that you could use that kit on quite a lot of different models, like White
yeah.
Scars and Librarians and stuff like that. I think would look really, really cool. He's kind of got two on his kind of tash. He's kind of got two metal bits. So the attention to
Yeah,
detail.
so I looked at that and I was like, it's a brilliant head. I love it. It's awesome for Space Wolves, but it's also perfect for like something like White Scars.
Yeah,
Yeah, something
yeah,
like
it's
that.
great. Yeah, it's really, really good. But alongside these awesome heads, they've redeemed themselves with that Cataphractii Praetor with this absolutely badass Praetor for the Space Wolves. Like, if this is really in my head kind of redeemed the whole line.
Yeah,
They've done such a good job with it, from the eagle knotwork kind of insignia on his kind of vexilla, I guess, or flag, to the wolf pelt, and the bear head on it is absolutely awesome. Like it looks
yeah,
so good.
yeah,
Yeah, they've
yeah.
done a brilliant job with these, right? What were your thoughts when you saw it, Lee?
So honestly, when I first saw this, I looked at it on my phone on it wasn't even like a full screen on my phone. And I just looked at it and thought, it looks weird. Like the proportions look all off. And everyone was banging on like, oh my God, this model's amazing. Oh my God, I love it. And I was looking at it thinking, it looks fucking weird. And it was only when I looked at it properly, I think I must have been at work or something, and I actually had a chance to look at it properly. I realized that what I was looking at was the red rope bit on his hips.
Yeah,
When I looked on a small screen, kind of blurred into the background, and it
that made
looked
it.
like he had these really weird, stumpy legs
Yeah,
and a really thin waist.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if I was to paint that, I would do those that like rope, whatever it is, a different color because it kind of blends into or do the inside of the cape a different color to kind of show off the model.
yeah.
But once I'd realized that it was just my old man eyes and I actually saw it properly, I was like, this model is fucking sick. And then I saw the bare head, and I'm normally So I think certain legions lend themselves to not having bare heads, and
Yeah,
certain legions lend themselves to having bare heads. And Space Wolves is one of those armies that 100% lends itself to having bare heads, and it's fucking perfect. Like, and someone said, I think it was on one of the chat groups, we were on, oh yeah, but it's a dwarf head, so it should be good, and it's perfect though, isn't it? Because I mean, the original fantasy dwarfs were basically like fucking
yeah,
Vikings, so
yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah, 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 yeah. Fair play.
it,
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I feel like they've done some fucking terrible models for Space Wolves Heresy, but then they've done the Death Swarm, the Death Swarm pack, are fucking brilliant. And I feel like they've gone back to that sort of aesthetic of Space Viking, which is what people were asking for.
Yeah,
And they finally got it right because this is fucking brilliant. I mean, the Mark 6 heads, I'm not that bothered about. Like, they look great, but whatever.
yeah.
Like, they do look good. Like, to be honest, this is a set of Mark 6 heads that I would buy if I was a Space Wolves player. But generally, I'm not that bothered. But it does add a bit of character. But yeah, that character and that bare head are fucking absolutely top tier compared to the absolute fucking dog shit robo dog head thing they produced before. But like, fair play to them that they've actually gone back and realized, look, no one fucking likes these.
Yeah,
Let's change them. Like, fair play, because they must have spent a bit of time and money and effort
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
yes, no one's brought them. Like, I mean, I can only imagine they've done it from a monetary point of view, but at least they've done it. And then they when they put the thing out on Warhammer Community, I think they put something like, because you liked the first one so much, we've
We
done it
made you a
again.
stay.
Like,
So
and I can't help but admire that. I'm like,
yeah,
I absolutely take my hat off to that because fucking own it. Like, you
yeah,
little shit.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, a great model, and I think that this is for me redeemed a lot of what was
And
wrong with the
And I think this is a real throwback to the artwork as well with the armor. If you look at the legs, the kind of the plates over the plates is a real throwback to a lot of the earlier um, kind of Space
yeah.
Wolf artwork.
This is where plate on plate on plate works, whereas the
Yeah,
Centurion
yeah,
felt that
yeah,
it wasn't the champion, the traitor champion wasn't
yeah.
didn't quite work, but this really works. I mean, you've got chain on the other legs, loads of detail on this model, and I'm sure will be added to loads of Space Wolves players. Armies, right, as a praetor or a character, a sergeant, whatever, who knows? But yeah, absolutely brilliant. Well done, Studio Forge World team, and great paint job as well. Why the paint jobs on them
Yeah,
cool. I
that,
think that was literally all that was released,
that's
though.
it. Yeah,
So we're going to go straight into our main show. So it's going to be quite a short one, actually, because I suppose our Legions Imperialis was a very long show. So this one will be quite a short one. So um, when I saw the battle group, as we said right at the start of the show, basically, I think it was fairly inevitable that everybody who plays Heresy will probably buy one of these. And I quite like mixed armor marks in armies. Like, I don't have an issue with it. I think it looks quite cool. I think it just shows the development of the armor through the ages. I think it gives you something a little bit different to paint. I think that during the Horus Heresy, you would probably call it, although Maximus pattern armor is and Mark 6 armor, I suppose, would be the most highly developed. You're going to call on ancient suits of armor that are like 100, 200 years old, right? Even Crusade armor, because you're running out of things. You don't have access to forge in those ways. So I think that view it like that. View it as a different modding opportunity. And it's nice to see the Dreadio in plastic. It's not everybody's favorite kind of dreadnought chassis, but whatever, fine. And a Proteus is just a great model to have. I think from a tactician strategic point of view, not to delve into too much about what we go into in the Patreon, but I think that basically the Land Raider Proteus is really well costed as an assault vehicle, whereas I'd argue that the Spartan is probably about 50 points over costed once you start adding things onto it. So the Proteus is always, I think, now in this edition, a more appealing tank, especially again because it has capacity 12 as well, right? So yeah. I think everybody will add one of these, and then it was really nice to see that these come with some support weapon options. So basically, from my understanding, you get 5 of every weapon in one of these boxes. So you get 5 plasma, 5 melter, 5 Calvias, 5 chargers, etc. But what I said to the guys was, you know what, I really would like to do um, uh, a show about kind of seeing what armies we can create using two of these boxes. Because actually, when you break it down, you've got an awful lot of miniatures within there. And I was like, I wonder if we can create a decent force out of these two boxes and see what we create. Now, of course, you're going to want a leader. So, you're going to have to budget in, either your Pro Tour model, character model, whatever. And we have factored those things in when creating these lists that are about to come up. But also, we have relied quite heavily on 3D printing. So we obviously have a number of 3D printing sponsors of our show. We have no issue with 3D printing. There'll be some people who might have an issue with 3D printing. But unfortunately, bottom line is, in this wonderful, glorious age of Horus Heresy, some things are just simply not available in the masses that we need to be able to take them in the way that we want them. So a good example would be Charnable Sabers, right? So Charnable Sabers en masse are very hard to get hold of from Forge World unless you buy like 10 Palatine blades, right? Which will set you back like 100 quid, which is just not economical. So 3D printing offers you a way, and we'll talk about kind of the things that you need, but it offers you a way to get things en masse cheaper. And that kind of takes us to, I think, what's on the next slide, Lee? So I'm going to talk about, right. So the army. So 3 army lists. So we are going to look at 3 army lists. So we're going to look at Dark Angels, we're going to look at Emperor's Children, and we're going to look at World Eaters. Now, I think World Eaters we may have done some list building for in a previous episode, but I can't recall doing too much on Emperor's Children apart from like our allied detachments and Dark Angels. But roughly, the points level for each of these forces that we're going to create is around 2,500 points. For each one, we're going to give you a list. We're not saying that this is the best tactical list. It's just what you can make from the boxes, and some of them, in essence, are quite similar, just because of the nature of what you get. You've got 2 Proteus, so you're obviously going to probably use them. And you're going to put assault guys in there, right? But there is variations between the lists as well. So yeah. Any thoughts so far, Lee, on anything that I've said so far? Or are you just looking forward to seeing some of these lists?
No. The only thing I was going to say is we got. There's been a bit of talk about because obviously the box set comes with the new Mark III models, and we got a bit of feedback because we really liked them, and it seems to me that kind of 95% of the people either like them or aren't bothered, and 5% are just shouting at the monitor or TV screen, like, because they fucking hate them so much.
Yeah, fair play. But that's fine, right? I mean, people want to.
I mean, it is what it is. But it was nice to see that. Yeah, most people who commented on the last show or messaged or whatever are looking forward to the box set. They're happy that a box set's coming. I mean, it's a brilliant idea. This is the first time we've had something like this in the Heresy.
Yeah.
So it's a great idea. Obviously, we don't know what the cost of it is yet, but hopefully it will be a very reasonable price to create the basis of an army off, or to add to an army, or to start a new legion, or whatever it is you're going to do with them.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your guess for price? Out of curiosity, what do you reckon?
Fuck, you know what? I honestly don't have a clue, because part of me thinks it's actually going to be a lot cheaper than we think.
Right.
Just to shift them, basically.
Yeah.
But then part of me is like, it's Games Workshop, and
they're like, worried it might be yeah.
So I honestly don't have a clue. I mean, I wouldn't even like to guess. Fuck no.
I'm going to say 110 quid. So I reckon you'll be able to get them from third-party stores for about 85, 90 pounds. That's what I reckon.
Right. Yeah, I think 100, 110, 120 sounds about.
The main box with the rules in, with 40 Marines, 10 Cataphracti, Contemptor, 2 Praetors, Spartan, and I think some other bits as well. That was 180, and you can get that at 140 quid. So it can't be anywhere near that kind of price.
I don't know how much the normal 40k boxes are, to be honest, because that would be a bit of a.
I think they were like one maybe 150, something around that mark.
Yeah,
I think they'll be cheaper than that.
But I mean, 120, 110, you're talking couple £100 for a fucking army.
Yeah,
Like, that's insane. You
yeah.
know, well, 5 years ago, you'd be lucky to do anything like that.
No way
Years
could
ago,
you get. Yeah,
this is
absolutely. I
insane.
agree with you. Yeah,
10
absolutely.
years ago, that would have got you a tax squad. Fucking
Yeah.
Rama.
Like 200 quid is a tank and a half, right? I mean, like, Proteus and a half. Cool. Okay, so those are the three armies that we're going to go through. Quite interesting legions, and each one has some quite cool units that we'll discuss. But that does take us to 3D printing options. So just have a look at the next one. So we'll just whiz through these. Oh, sorry. Before we look at 3D printing options, this is what you get. So if you're unfamiliar and unsure, so basically in 2 boxes, and this will be the basis of all of the army discussion that we have. So you get 60 Marines. And what I'm hoping is that for each one of those 10 Marines, like we got in the Siege of Cathonia, no, was it whatever, the Age of Darkness box, for every 10, you will get an upgrade sprue. Or for every 5, you get an upgrade sprue, like a command upgrade sprue. That's my hope. I hope they don't do us dirty or do us dirty on the command sprue, because on that command sprue is like the power fist, the lightning claws, some of the bear heads, etc., etc. And then we get 2 Doredios in 2 boxes, and those are armed with either plasma or autocannons, and then the Aeolos launcher. So it doesn't come with, I couldn't see anywhere that it came with the missiles, although that's standard stock build. So it seems to me that there's going to be a las cannon and missile option coming at a later date, or the kit is just going to be, it will just be that it's all one kit altogether, like the Contemptories, and you can arm it with any option. This is similar to the Contemptor that we had before, where we just have some of the options, but not all of them. We come with 2 Land Raiders. So that is what it is. You'll be able to make an assault version or a explorator version. And then in the 2 boxes, because we've obviously combined them, you get 10 of each special weapon. So it's basically, it's the same as buying the Mark 6, the Mark 6 kit. Just something to remember. So we had this discussion, I think, on the last show, maybe the show that I did with John, which is that only for the heavy weapons are the arms different. For the Mark 6, the upgrades, basically it's the same. The weapon is the same. It's just and they fit the normal TAC Marine arms, right? So it's just literally the weapon sprue that you get. So you get 5 of each, 10 of each. In 2 boxes. So across this, we've got to consider, like, we have 10 melter guns, we have 10 plasma guns. Yeah. And I think the other thing is, and we discussed this again when we were looking at allied detachments, you'll have plenty of spares, and those spares can be swapped with friends or sold online. And that way you can make a bit of cash back. You won't make like hundreds of pounds, you'll make a few quid, but those few quid can be put towards your 3D printing budget or your special character budget or whatever. So just something to consider. Try and save money, make money wherever you can with these boxes if you don't need things. Pretty good deal, right? If we roughly just say 100 quid for each box, just as a rough estimate, you've got the basis of a great army for about 200 quid. 200 quid, 220 quid. I think that you got a basis of a really decent force. And then you'll probably need a budget, I think, in order to do this, what we're going to discuss today. I would say another £100. So we're really looking at an army around about 2,500 points for about £300. Using these things, which I think is pretty reasonable. That would keep you going hobby-wise, entertained for a couple of months, getting it painted and then playing with it. Hours and hours of fun from that. Anything you want to add there, Lee?
No. No, I think you pretty much covered it all, to be honest, mate.
Cool. Right, so I think now is the 3D printing options, because we didn't do any advertising at the start of the show. That's because I'm waiting for this part of the show. So basically, we have lots of affiliate links and links with a number of 3D printers. So Beowulf Miniature Printing is good because they've got a website you can go check out, and lots of the pictures that I've used are from Beowulf Miniature Printing. But I did contact him last night, and I was like, I don't suppose, because I couldn't see it on your website, I don't suppose you got like Phalanx blades, have you? And he was like, yeah, I've got Phalanx blades. I've got Phalanx blades coming out my arsehole, mate. And so there are, if you're looking for things and they're not on the website, it doesn't mean that they don't have them. it just means that they either haven't put them up or whatever. But right, so just contact these guys because they'll probably be able to find the file for you. They know where the file is. They already have the file, and I often do that with apothecary bits. I'm like, I don't suppose you got this thing. Yeah, I've got this thing. Check these. Check this out. I've got most of them. So just get in contact with them. Because they'll probably be able to sort you out. And say Heresy Hammer sent you, say I want to buy this kit from this Heresy Hammer episode. I'm sure they'll do some kind of discount for you. I'm putting their foot in it there, but I'm sure that they'll be able to do that. So Beowulf Miniature Printing is good. We'll use lots of images because they've also got a website, but you can always go to as well Get Your 3D. Dan, who does some really kind of like high-end bespoke miniature printing. Like, if you're looking for a Praetor, right, he's the man, to go and get your get a Praetor printed off by. Because there's quite a lot of links with Will from Diverging Realm Studios as well. So if you're looking for like banners and stuff that Wolf has created, then Dan has all the files. So definitely worth checking him out. But same again. Tap him up. He'll know where files are. He knows all the ins and outs of 3D printing. So definitely tap him up. But also we've got another person linked with us, which is Battlebling, who Lee introduced last week. And we've got an affiliate link through those guys. So if you use the link below in order to purchase any things that you want. Now, these guys are mainly focused around the Adeptus Titanicus, but they do some Heresy bits. I've got great jump packs of these guys. And they've got a really diverse and interesting web store as well. So go check those guys out. So any of those guys, we would really recommend them. And those guys will produce. Each of them will produce different things, right, as well. So go tap them up. Go see what they produce. So without further ado, we are going to go to the list now. Now,
should we have a quick break and then go into the list?
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Break and then go into the list. Cool. Right. See you back in a second. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that little interlude. We're going to go straight into the list now. So, with each list, we've got a few pictures just to illustrate what we're talking about, what you probably need, and also I've created a little shopping list for you as well, and exactly what you will need to get from 3D printers or Forge or whatever. So, it was lucky that Lee checked this list for me last night, because I did a Pride of the Legion list only to find that it was terrible because you only allowed one heavy support in it. So I went for the Marascara instead. Now, we've done loads of tacticas on Rights of War, and we've done a whole episode on Emperor's Children. So if you're thinking about doing an Emperor's Children force, we really recommend going to watch that. And that was with our friend Kieran, Raptor Imperialis, where we go into the Marascara. But basically, the long and short of the Marascara is that you can put an elite or a troop or a fast attack into outflank, if you want to, up to 4 units into outflank. And then they can come on the board whenever they want to. You choose after turn 1. But while they are off the board, or if you've got anything in reserve, basically everything that's got Emperor's Children, Legionis, Astartes rules gains +1 movement to their movement characteristics, so the movement 8, right? So that will help in a number of scenarios, help with charges, etc., etc. That very crudely put, that is the Marascara, and then you bring it on from outflank when it wants to. So if you're at the start of your turn, so you don't have to declare it even at the start of the game. You just say, okay, I'm going to get this to come on turn 5 now because I wanted the buff to go across my entire force up until the end of the game, right? So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. That +1 movement, I think, is not to be underrated. You're basically, through a Rite of War, a white scar, right? Yeah, and then you get all your Emperor's Children buffs on top of that. So nothing to be sneezed at. So for my HQ option, I've gone for Lucius. And in order to take the Marascara, so he's obviously the Master of the Legion, but in order to take the Marascara, you have to take a Legion champion. Or their Legion specific one, but I just went for a generic Legion champion. A Legion champion is great. He gives fearless to a unit when he's in a challenge, and he comes with a Paragon Blade, so a great option for Emperor's Children. You will need, with your 60 Marines, one of them will obviously be the Legion champion, and then one of them will be a Legion apothecary with Artificer Rama. Now, that apothecary is going to go in a 10-man squad of veterans, along with Lucius. So this is those 12 guys can fit in that Land Raider. I'll talk about the Land Raider a little bit later. So in that vet squad, we've got Artificer Rama, Thunder Hammer, 5 charnable sabers, and the charnable sabers are going to be a bit of a theme in this list, and then 2 melt guns as well. So a little bit of anti armor there, but just going in, maybe trying to take out a few bodies before striking with all those +1 initiative charnable sabers that are breaching 5 up. Did you know they were breaching 5 up? They're absolutely crazy.
Chernobyl sabers.
Yeah.
Are they 5 up?
Breaching 5 up. Yeah, double check, but charnable sabers.
I thought they were better than that.
So have a look, but I'm almost certain they're breaching 5 up. But there are.
Sorry, yeah, they are. Yeah, I'm thinking of something else. Yeah.
But there are other charnable weapons. But I was like, what? Breaching 5 up is crazy. Yeah, but they are strength.
Fucking great. I'm surprised we don't see more of them. I really am.
Well, it's probably because Forge World don't make them en masse, but our friends at Beowulf Miniature Printing do make them en masse. So we'll come to that in a second. So Vet Squad. Now, the great thing about the Vet Squad is that they are weapon skill 5, and they're 2 wounds apiece, right? So being able to add in an apothecary for that feel no pain just makes them such a great unit for beating up stuff. And at breaching 5 up with their charnable sabers is just fantastic. And then they're +1 initiative on the charge as well. So good, so good. Now I wanted to add some inductile units into this. Why not? We just had the Siege of Cathonia. And going with the whole charnable theme. So with the Legion, with the Emperor's Children and Ductile squads, you can kit out every single dude in an inductile squad with a charnable saber.
Fucking insane.
Or 5 points a model. Yeah. So usually, if you haven't looked at despoiler squads, you can do that. You can add charnable sabers to despoiler squads, but it's 1 in every 5. With an Emperor's Children squad, it is one for 1, right? Which is absolutely crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. And then on top of that, for in the shooting phase, if they get shot at, they're basically leadership 10 as well. So just something to consider, but a nice little buff on top of the charnable weapons. So I went for a 12-man squad. You can't attach any guys to inductile squads. It's one of the rules they come with. No apothecaries or anything like that. No characters to go with them, because an obvious choice might be the champion to fit alongside them, but you can't do that. So just pack them out, go for a 12-man inductile squad, and they can either work alongside that vet squad, or alternatively go and beat on things like tactical squads. Right, I wouldn't send them against Legion elite units, but I certainly would send them to go bully assault units, other troop choices, things like that, right?
They're going to chop up tac squads, aren't they? They're going to push tac squads off objectives. Yeah, they're going to fucking murder tac squads.
And their line as well, which is something else to. So I've gone for the theme of just an assault force here. So I've gone for 2-man despoiler squads instead of tactical squads. So you'll need to consider one thing I haven't put on shopping list is chain weapons and bolt pistols, but you can pick those up from any of our 3D printing counterparts. But I did put 2 on each squad, so 2 10-man squads: Power Fist, Artificer Rama, Vexilla, and 2 charnable sabers in each unit as well. So that's a whole theme of the force. So they're obviously line as well. So far we've got 3 scoring units within our army, and then because we've got the melter squad, or we got the melter weapons, I've gone for a melter sport squad with Artificer Rama and 6-man. Now I thought, because it's a troops choice, the melter sport squad would be a really good option to put into outflank with the Marascara, and then you can come in to 3, 4, or 5 or whatever you want, gain those extra movement buffs, and then they can come in and then hopefully destroy something back lower it up. We've got our Deredios, so I've gone for the autocannon option here to help with medium armor, and then the Aelios, because it's the only option that there is.
Same option you got.
But the other thing to consider, so I think that it's often forgotten that the Deredios they go down as a talon, and then they can separate, right? So don't consider them as just one unit. They're a talon and then they separate, so they can fire at different things. And then we've got our 2 Land Raider Proteuses. So 1 Vet Squad, Lucius and the Apothecary will go in Land Raider Proteus, and that has an extra las cannon, multi-melter, and searchlight. You really want those searchlights. And then our Inducti squad. This is rather decadent, but very good for the Emperor's Children. Our Inducti squad goes into our Land Raider Proteus, and I really thought that those two could work alongside each other. Now that comes to 2,277 points altogether, which I thought was pretty reasonable for kind of 2 boxes plus whatever. But you've got their 700 points to play around with, 700 plus points to play around with. And I think particularly with this list, you'd probably want to add in maybe a little bit more anti-armor. You might want to up those spoiler squads, add more guys into it, right? You could buy a 3rd box, and I think you could get all the points you would ever need and all the anti-tank you would ever need from there, right? And then your shopping list. So I have left off, which I've forgotten, which I do apologize. So you will need, so in addition to that, so you need 6, 7, so 14 chain swords and bolt pistols, but you'll need your 2 boxes, your Lucius, apothecary bits for your Mark III Marines, Thunderhammer, because Thunderhammers don't come in the kits, unfortunately, but you need Thunderhammers from somewhere, and 22 Charnable Sabers, or 21 Charnable Sabers, and a Paragon Blade for your champion as well. And I think that either is exactly 60 Marines or is 59 Marines for what I remember. You've got a Marine to play around with, but I think that's spot on 60. So that's our first list. What do you reckon of our first list, Lee? The whole theme of Charnable Sabers.
I really like it, and yeah, like we've already mentioned, I think I'm amazed we don't see more Charnable Sabers because they're so fucking good.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's funny that you talked about it because I'd written this on my notes.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a recurring theme through the 3 lists is you are slightly lacking in anti-tank in these lists. And don't get me wrong, the last cannons on the Land Raiders are going to put some work in.
Yeah.
And even the Dradio, the autocannons are pretty good. They're
it's like medium armor, right? Right.
Yeah, they're like a mini version of the Leviathan, basically, aren't they? And you've got 2 of them.
Yeah.
I would probably have gone with a Warden, to be honest, just for thing.
There's I would say, so the Warden is the special character. So I would say there's probably a piece of paper between them. I think that
100%.
I think one weapon is, so the Paragon Blade is like AP2 at initiative, whereas the spear it's got like murderous strike. Whatever.
Yeah, and then I think the Warden gets options, doesn't he? So he can do certain things in combat. I'm not.
Yes, that's right.
What, but I quite like the idea of that. But yeah, I mean, potato, really, isn't it?
But I'd probably put, what I didn't say is where I put him, and I'd probably put him with the despoiler squad. And because you haven't got room for him in the Proteus, and you can't put him with the Inducti. So that's the other thing you might want to consider, which is actually trying to get hold of a 3rd Proteus, which would then bump you up to 15 las cannons. And then 3 multi-melt shots on them, and then.
Was there a reason you went for the veteran squad and not a command squad?
Yeah, no reason. I just thought that it would be harder for people to get hold of
the bits.
Yeah. So I kind of I don't think there's any issue creating a command squad. I'm also conscious that we've got a command squad coming down the line, I think towards the end of this year, and I think that people probably that's going to come with a flag. That's going to come with kind of like weapon options, I'd imagine.
Because I mean, you throw that as a command squad, you get another scoring unit, and then they can take a Land Raider as a dedicated transport. But then that's maybe something you could look at. This is the start of a force, isn't it? This is the beginning, and I think it's a fucking brilliant start. Like, I'd probably want to put the Melter squad in Rhinos, make them mobile.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah,
give them a bit of protection. I quite like. I'm not a fan of heavy weapon last cannon squads, but I quite like it for Emperor's Children. It's quite
Yeah,
fitting for the Emperor's Children.
100%.
But yeah, no, yeah, it's fucking brilliant. It's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, super cool. And I think I always like to theme a list around either like a weapon option or whatever. You call it spam, whatever. But I just think the charnable weapons just en masse, I just think are quite cool, quite fitting for the Legion. I think it
Yeah, of,
plays into it.
of all
Um,
the legions that it works for, this is it, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And also like looking. So I took this picture from Beowulf Miniature Printing, but like the Charnable Saber just looks quite cool with the Mark III. Now I think that some of you might go, oh, okay, well they're the old style Mark III arms. I think that they'll be updated in no time at all. I think that they won't look out of place really as well.
I
With
don't think you wouldn't fucking notice, would you? You'd have to get your magnifying glass out from, you know what I mean, from the tabletop. But and the swords look awesome as
Yeah,
well.
so good. And like great for a paragon. Like even if you just use those as paragon plates, you're like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine. Whatever. Add a cape to your Legion champion, you know, and a few transfers here and there or whatever. You know, nice helmet or something like that. But yeah, and Lucius, we've gone through him before, but he's an absolute murder.
he's a dick kicker, isn't he?
Yeah, he's probably awesome. So yeah, so that's our first list, and it's the cheapest of all the lists that we're going to have a look at today. But the problem with doing stuff like this, Lee, is just like I'm like, okay, so I'm now going to have to start a new army. I'm going to have to now add this into the force because you know it just gets the juice flowing. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, let's have a look at the next one. So a similar style theme, but this what is interesting with vet squads. So vet squads can only take as dedicated transports, rhinos, uh, and drop pods, which is quite a cool option, and termites as well. So it is really interesting vet squads not being able to take Proteus because it means that it maxes out your heavy sport options, whereas this army didn't do that. So I've chosen the Crimson Path here just to be a little bit different from Berserker Assault. But the main reason I chose the Crimson Path was because it gives Rampager squads line, which means that we've now got 5 squads or 5 units with scoring in this army, which I think is probably quite unthematic for World Eaters, but I think that World Eaters need to start stepping up their game and thinking a bit more tactically. Not just it's not always about the blood, you know. It's not always about the skull for the skull thrones. So
Yeah,
this,
I see this more as you're going to score in your opponent's deployment zone. That's where you're
yeah,
scoring. You're going to shove these straight down your opponent's throat and hopefully have something left to chop things up. And then they might score an objective in your opponent's deployment zone rather than kind of sitting them back in your own deployment zone. That's how I see this army playing.
yeah. So a few interesting things about this one. So basically, with this Rite of War, you ignore the first wound that you receive. So let's say you get a las cannon to the face, and you're like, okay, well, I'll just ignore that, right? So,
Yeah.
so you know,
In every phase, isn't it?
in every infantry unit ignores the first wound inflicted on that unit in each phase. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's great. Yeah, that's really, really good. But I think mainly I was like, line rampage squads. That's great. What's interesting about Berserker Skull is, and I think we talked about it before, it's a really great Rite of War, but it doesn't. It allows rampage squads to be troops, but doesn't give them line. So you're choosing between the two rights to do that. And I thought probably in Siege of Cathonia based missions, 4 turns, you're probably going to want to score from the outset. Really, you know, dominate that board with lots of bodies really early on. The couple of interesting things about this Rite of War as well, though. So detachments using this Rite of War must include more units composed entirely of models with the infantry unit type than total numbers of units that include one or more models with any other unit type combined. So I think that that's an interesting point here, which is why I've got despoilers obviously on foot, and the apothecaries help to bump that up. Now you could split those apothecaries as well into 2 separate units to be able to make that work. But really we've only got I guess 4 things without the infantry type, and everything else has the infantry type. So we're all good on that one. So this is the list. So we've got Khan with Gorchal. And he again is an absolute murderer. And his reaction is absolutely like brilliant, right? So you can't do an Overwatch against him. I think that's from what I recall. We can't do an Overwatch.
Yeah, unless you've got a Primarch in the unit. Yeah, you can't Overwatch if he charges you. You can't do a reaction if he charges you.
So man alive, that's so good, right? So you're safe from, you're safe from that. We got four
away from you. Yeah,
really, really, really good. So we've got 4 apothecaries with Artificer Rama, and fine, whatever. Those will be useful for murdering things later on. We got 2 10-man rampage squads. Now, we're going to outfit them all with phalanx blades. So you will need 20 phalanx blades and arms. So this, I would say, is probably the most expensive of the list that we'll probably kind of create, because I think that will cost you to get all those arms and phalanx blades. This is one where I couldn't see it on Beowulf Miniature Printing site, but he found the file for me literally like that. Honestly, he was like, 20 seconds, saw my message, was like, yeah, I've got that. I can sort you out with that. And there's a phalanx blade there holding it upside down. Don't forget, these guys know how to mirror things. So if you want them holding them the same as the rampages from the Forge World models, where they're just holding them kind of as a normal sword would be held, they just mirror them. So you've got them the right way around. Okay. So the phalanx blades are absolutely awesome. So I just want to remind you, Lee, I made Lee read through the list.
So I'll be honest, mate. I saw this list last night. I was at work for everyone else, and Rob sent me this list. What was it, about 10:30, 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck me, he spammed phalanx blades." I was like, "Why has he done that?" And then I had to look at the rules to remind myself, and I was like, "That's why he's fucking done it."
No, just a reminder. So here, your phalanx blades. So they're +1 strength. They're a specialist weapon, but you obviously get 2 of them. And then they're rending 4 up and duelist edge as well. Now, the rending 4 up is the critical thing, because obviously they're at AP2, but don't forget, and this is the most important thing, the rampagers can take on contemptors and leviathans with no problem, because they are just wounding on that 4 up, and it's now AP2 as well. So this unit will help you, even though there's not a whole load of anti-tank in it. Your rampager squads become almost like your killers of like the leviathans or the contemptors and things like that, right? And these will murder elite units as well. Like these will just go through them if they are nuts. And I believe they're all chosen warriors as well. So that helps with this edge. So in a challenge, you get +1 initiative on top of that as well. So and on top of that you get furious charge. So they're strength 6 as well. So phalanx blades, spam them. If you want to be nice, don't spam them. But I was creating the most brutal list that I possibly could. And the great thing about rampages is that they can take land raiders as dedicated transport. So you're not filling out those heavy support options. So if you want to expand the list to add more anti-tank in, you certainly can do that. A couple of vindicated laser destroyers or predators, whatever you want to, might be a good option here. And the land raiders are the same builds as last time. So you've got 5 las cannon shots basically on each one, multi-mil shot and a searchlight, obviously. We've got 2x15 despoiler squads. You could do 3x10 if you wanted to. And again, I've just gone for the axe theme. So I've got power fist, chain axes, 3 power axes, and I've missed off Artificer Armor, but Artificer Armor is included with that. And then I've thrown in, and this was an idea that you gave me, I think, Lee, a while back, which is this absolutely insane Legion Recon squad, right? So they can outflank, can't they? Because they've got, I think, a scout or something like that. So I've on them with a power fist, 5 chain axes, and then the whole squad can be given melter bombs as well. So just bring them on from outflank and start blowing up people's tanks. So there's actually like quite a lot of hidden anti-tank, anti-contemptor, anti-Dreadio stuff, anti-Leviathan stuff built within this list. Also Khan is Murderous Strike 3 up, I think, from what I recall. So he'll take down some contemptors and Leviathans quite easily. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go for the plasma on this one. So some plasma shots on the Dreadios. You've got the flexibility to be able to separate those 2 in the heavy support slots if you want to put them in different places. Completely up to you. But I just thought for some anti-personnel, maybe trying to get some light armor, plasma, and the Aolos would be a good one. Now, this, in terms of the apothecaries, one in each of the Rampager squads, one in each of the spoiler squads, you're away, right? Like, that is a hardy survivable, almost 2,500 book list. But I think this will set you back a fair amount because you're going to need a lot of arms, a lot of chain axes, a lot of phallic play. So I think this is, this might be £150 extra on top of your 2 boxes in order to get all those bits. So what's your thoughts, Lee, on that?
Just a quick one on that. I think that's always been the case with World Eaters, isn't it? The fact that you've had to buy chain axes has always been a cost. You've chosen. You're going for the close combat today, aren't you? It's all about close combat.
I think the thing is that when I saw the boxes and when I was list building, I think that I was kind of like, you've got the best, in my opinion, the Proteus is the best assault transport that there is. I said right at the start that I just think the Spartan is just overcosted, and I think that the Proteus just does it best. Yeah, I know it can take a flare shield, but by the time you've upgraded it, you're taking there's a 400-point transport. That's a 2,500 point list.
It's a hard one, isn't it? I agree with you, but I also feel like the Spartan becomes very survivable.
Yeah. That I don't.
That shield. I really like this. I mean, I used to run World Eaters in first edition, and my army was basically all Land Raiders and Spartans with dickheads inside. And it's quite fun to play because you just shove it all forward and punch your opponent in the throat. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this. Again, like I said on the last one, and it's probably going to be a recurring theme, is I know you've got the last cannons on the Land Raiders, but the Land Raiders ideally are going to be flying forwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I'd really love to add to this is, and I know every army runs it, is a couple of Contemptor dreadnoughts with double close combat weapons running forwards, like real dynamic posers. Just fucking send the whole army forwards.
Yeah.
Just punching dickheads in the face.
And that's the thing, right? Which is that you might not lean into the anti-tank because actually in close combat these guys are going to be able to take apart anti-tank anyway.
I mean,
aim fist
and a World Eater, isn't it? As long as your army survives to get into contact with your opponent, it's going to do the business once it gets into contact. It just needs to get there. And it's the kind of catch-22 of, do you spend points on Land Raiders or do you just buy more dudes to run forward? But I mean, I quite like this where you got a mixture of both.
I did flirt with the idea of veterans, right? But the thing about veterans, not only had I done it for the Emperor's Children, but the other thing is you can't take the Kadir weapons, the cadre weapons, in the same way because they basically can only be upgraded on characters. But the Rampages can, every single one of them can take it.
I mean, Rampages are essentially veterans, aren't they? 100%. Like weapon skill 5, chosen.
3 episodes. Absolutely.
I think Rampages are fucking brilliant too.
So really, this is quite an exciting one. And people should know that I've already bought the bits already to start.
You've already got a Kratos painted, haven't you?
Yeah.
So there you go.
There's
some 3,000 points done.
Yeah, exactly right. Cool. And there's your little shopping list there. So let us know what you think in the comments below about this one. And then finally, so we're going to go over to the loyalists, give some loyalists some love. So this was an interesting one, and this one is the most amount of points. I've gone for no right of war, partly because the rights of war there are some absolutely fantastic rights of war, and we've done it when we've looked at some of them in detail before. Certainly when Lee's done his, you looked at the Firewing, I think, right of war, didn't you, Lee? When we were doing the Allied detachments. Lots of the problems with the Dark Angels rights of war is it doesn't make special units line. But it does give additional buffs here and there. But because it was quite a complicated process as well, trying to untangle the web of secrecy of the Dark Angels, I just went for something fairly standard and just relied on special units actually for this one. Now we're going to start off with Corswain because he's an absolutely badass motherfucker. Now we won't talk too much about the rules for each unit. Like I'll just briefly touch on them. but there are going to be some obvious ones, like the veterans are obviously going to have the Deathwing because it will help you with all the swords that I'm about to give them. So we're going to have Corswain, who's similar to Sigismund, absolute dick kicker. I think he's just missing the Eternal Warrior, but basically he's almost like a copy paste, right? We've got 3 apothecaries with Artificer Armor. Now we've got not a close combat unit, but we've got, because they can take them as a dedicated transport, we've got an Interemptor squad with Artificer Armor, a Melter Bomb in a Land Raider Proteus. Now the Interemptors you have to get up close and personal with these guys because they're essentially they are flamers. They're plasma flamers basically. They use the template. And a cheap way, I think, to be able to run these, if you're doing it on a budget, is just to give them the plasma guns, and just say those are the plasma burners, whatever weapon they come with. I can't remember. They've got like plasma incinerators, plasma burners.
Plasma burner.
Plasma burners. But what I would recommend, in order just to like spice them up a little bit, is use the old school Forge Raw helmets, which are still available. I can believe it. They're still available to buy, which is great. And just add them onto the Mark III bodies, and then just be like, and then just put lots of checks everywhere, just spruce them up that way. And that can be your Interemptor squad. Now, if you were like, oh, my gaming group doesn't like it when I use things as other things, you can always use them as a plasma support squad, because plasma supports can be upgraded to plasma burners, and then just put them in a Proteus. You've got the spare heavy support slot to be able to do that. They just come in a little bit more expensive doing it that way, and you miss out on the Dreadwing rule, and you also miss out as well on the rad grenades provided by the Interemptor squad. Now, the Interemptors can go up to 20 man or 15 man, but I chose a 10-man squad for these guys. But because they've got the Bitter Duty special rule, you can't put any other kind of model with them, right? So, if you were to expand this force, if you wanted to take like a Moritan or whatever, you totally could do that. But just to consider, you can't put a special character in with those, following the standard rules. So far, so good. All happy with that at least so far.
Yeah.
Now you could. What was interesting was that I think they can only take the Land Raider Assault Proteus version as a dedicated option. So I seem to remember yesterday that you couldn't take the Proteus Explorer as a dedicated option.
Yeah, just the carrier, yeah.
So if you were to take the Proteus Explorator, it has scout, so it gets you closer, but you are losing capacity too. So you'd only be able to take 8 guys in that unit. Okay, so there's something else to consider. But it fucks with people's reserves as well. Helps you with reserves or whatever. So we've got 10-man bet squad. With a Thunderhammer, Artificer Armor. Now, I did a little bit of searching with the bet squad, and looking at swords and power swords. Now, power swords are strength as user and rending 6 up, I think. Rending 6 up or breaching 6 up. The Charnable Saber, I think, personally, for me, just comes out better. You lose the AP 3, but it's the breaching 5 up that I think that you're really, really kind of like hunting for and going for here. And then giving this vet squad the Deathwing rule will help it in close combat as well on top of that. And then they're mixed in with Corswain. So I think that this unit, being weapon skill 5 with Corswain, Charnable Sabers en masse, will be quite a tough unit, I think, to get rid of. I think that it'll be, we're going to put an apothecary in there. Whether they could go toe-to-toe with the squad of Justarian, I would fancy my chances if I got the charge off. And you also get the Deathwing bonus for the Charnable Sabers as well. It's one of the only Charnable weapons that kind of like gives it, right? But I think I could send this against most things and they would be okay. So, yeah. Lee, do you know what the Deathwing rule is? Just remind me. I was looking at it yesterday.
God, I don't. I'll be honest.
Let me have a quick look-see here.
It was...
it's +1 something, basically. But from what I recall, let me just have a goosey gander.
It was one of the things I was going to say about the Dark Angels, and what I do like about this list is I think this is actually a really good kind of beginners list for Dark Angels, because I really believe that Dark Angels is one of those armies you need to play it very regularly to learn all the ins and outs. Because there's so many fucking rules for it,
Yeah.
and there's so many different ways it can be played that unless you're doing it fairly regularly, unless you're like Stephen Hawkins, it's going to blow your tiny little mind
Yeah.
because they're
Yeah.
just the same, which I love, but you know, there's a lot of rules there, isn't there?
Absolutely. So the bonus is +1 to hit, and you get that with. So these are the weapons, because I did flirt with power swords. So you get +1 to hit if you have a chainsword, force sword, power sword, tyrannic greatsword, calibanite warblade, or a charnable saber, and paragon blades or close combat weapons modeled as swords. So I looked at the calibanite weapons, but the calibanite warblades and tyrannic greatswords, but those can only be put on characters. You can't put them on mass in a veteran squad, even if they're chosen warriors, for example. So charnable saber seems to be the most sensible option. Your weapon skill 5, you mainly most of the time you're going to be hitting on fours and threes. Having that +1, lots of times you're going to be hitting on 3s and 2s now because of that +1 to bonus.
That's huge.
Yeah, so that's a really, really, really nice buff. And the swords there, so although they aren't physically charnable sabers, I would probably use a more generic power sword and say they're charnable sabers. Beowulf had some great examples of some Mark III kind of like long swords, which would be perfect for some death ring, right? So a few fancy helmets here and there, like those will look absolutely wicked. Czech heraldry, really go all out. We've got 2 basic 10-man squads of tack squads. So the first time I've used it, I think tack squads, I've gone to despoiler route. So that's just using the plastic kit. Nothing too fancy there with the power fist. But because I decided to give them the Stormwing, they get +1 to hit, so they basically feel like Imperial Fists when using their bolters.
Yep.
And then I went for a 10-man Inducti squad, just bare bones, because Dark Angels Inducti squads, they just get upgraded with Volkite chargers for free, and we've got 10 Volkite chargers to use. So I was like, why not? Let's just throw them in there. They're another scoring unit, so I've got 3 scoring units in there now, thanks to that Inducti squad. I just thought a nice little bit of flavour into it more than anything else in particular.
Very Dark Angels, isn't it? Fancy weapons.
Yeah, I think so. Now we come to the really interesting one. Now the Enigmatus Cabal is a unit that we don't see very often.
No.
But basically, the way I could liken them, they've got loads of funky rules, but they're basically jump pack Centurions in squads of 3. That is essentially what I would say. They've got kind of slightly fancier Calibanite Warblades. They've got jump packs that are slightly fancier that give them like a 4-up shrouded save. There are certain instances where those rules come into effect, but they're pretty good. They can cause a nuisance. Like if you send a small squad of those against a tack squad, the tack squad's going to die. Like they're pretty good as they've got jump packs, or they've got a special kind of jump pack, so they can move around fast as well. So
these aren't in the main rulebook, are they? These are from the Legacies
exactly
rules?
right. Yeah, exactly rightly. Yeah, spot on. So these are from the Legacy. So this is a specialist unit. So there is chances and opportunities for modeling these in certain ways, but basically, I was just give them one of the swords there that you can see. Just give them a Mark II jump pack, and you're away, right? Like there'll be some people who be like, "Oh, you got like iron armor. They can't have jump packs. Whatever. Who cares? It's a special kind of iron armor where the Ignatus Cabal can use it, right? And it's fine."
Yeah. Fucking, we've already got Mark III Marines in jump packs with the Wordbearers. So
Yeah,
it could be
exactly
done.
right. Exactly right. So it's all good. Like, so there'll be a good little addition, and they're 150 points a unit. So nice little unit, and they fill the fast attacks, which we haven't really touched at all in this discussion. Just going for the whole theme of the Dark Angels, I went for Plasma with the Doredio. There are loads of different, Iron Wing seems to be the most sensible because it's a machine, but actually something like the Fire Wing, which gives you +1 to wound when going or hitting independent characters, just might be a really nice thing for those. And then we've got a Land Raider Proteus, which your vet squad is going to go in, and then your apothecaries, we're going to fit one with the vet squad, and then two for the tax squads. That obviously gives you Heart of the Legion, or they come with Heart of the Legion. That will take them to a 4-up Feel No Pain as well. So that comes to the most expensive, 2,580 points. Despite the fact that it's the most expensive, I would have thought it'd probably be one of the cheaper ones because you only need 2 boxes Coursewain, bits for apothecaries, pack of Dark Angels heads, 15 power swords, and 6 jump packs. So actually, relatively, out of all the ones we've seen, I would say this is probably the cheapest one that you would want to do, but you're probably going to spend all your money on check transfers for these guys, and maybe some more upgraded heads from the Forge World range. Those particular heads with the Mark III bodies look really good. Like
those old Mark III heads, the Dark Angels heads are fucking brilliant. They're so good, so good.
So, what's your thoughts on this, Lee? What's your thoughts on
I
this
like it. I like it a lot. Like I kind of said before. I like the fact that you haven't just picked a wing and gone down a specific theme. I think if you're buying these boxes as a kind of starter set to begin a new Legion, or you're just getting into Heresy, I think this is perfect because you've got a bit of everything in there. You've got Deathwing, Dreadwing, Firewing, Stormwing. Have a play with it, see what you like, and then if you want to kind of learn the different rules, get used to playing with Dark Angels, and then from there kind of go down the rabbit hole of picking a specific wing and building a force around Firewing or whatever it is. But yeah, like I say, I mean, I get a little bit of a shiver down my spine when I look at the Dark Angels rules, because there's just fucking pages and pages of it. But I think it is just one of those Legions. You need to play it. You need to play it, get used to what the rules are doing, the different things, the interactions between the different rules, etc., etc. And I think this list does a really good job of kind of showing you all of them. And I love the Firewing Enigmatus Cabal. If you look on Instagram, there's examples of people who've done conversions of stuff, and some of them are fucking brilliant.
Absolutely.
Plus, I just love Dark Angels. They're fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I think that this is probably, I would say, the most balanced list in terms of, there's nothing too spammy about it. There's no, it's quite flavorful. It feels like it's got different units.
And you could, the Land Raider model comes Proteus or Explorator, doesn't it? So you could do an Explorator, stick it in the heavy support, and then stick your Interemptor squad.
Yep, give them scout. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would say with that is I do actually really like the actual Interemptor models.
Yeah.
But like you say, you could do this, play them as that, and then later on buy the actual Interemptor models and then use them as a sports squad, because they're still fucking good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, there's option.
Yeah, I 100% on that one. The other thing that I haven't added to the shopping list here is that you just need a Thunder Hammer as well. But you can always use a Power Fist because you've got plenty of those to play around with. But a Thunder Hammer from somewhere would also be on that list. So that's it. We're only having a look at 3, so it's a relatively short kind of like main episode. But Lee, out of the ones, if I said, look, I'm going to give you a £350 budget, and you have to start Dark Angels, Emperor's Children, or World Eaters, for you, which would it be?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. Fuck. I really like the idea of World Eaters, but I think the trouble with World Eaters is they do become a little bit of a one-trick pony after a while. I think
they're playing this in the same way, right?
But then you can always allied in other forces if you get a bit bored of just charging stuff.
I think I think playing off of your idea, if you wanted to expand that list further, adding more recon squads could be an interesting way, because then you're dealing with outflank, and you've got to think about outflanks, you've got to think about the turn 5, etc.
What was it? Because I did a list for World Eaters. I didn't use recon squads. I used Seekers. You can arm Seekers with chain axes, and then just stick them in a Land Raider. They'll take a Land Raider as a dedicated transport, and then you can outflank them in a Land Raider and just pop them straight into your opponent's back line. So I quite like things like that, just because you're still just punching things in the face, but you're becoming a bit more tricksy with it.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Which I'm a big fan of. But if I had to choose one, I would probably go down the Dark Angels route. I think Dark Angels are World Eaters, but I think I'd probably go down the Dark Angels.
Yeah.
But I kind of like them all, to be honest.
Yeah, that was the problem when I was writing these up yesterday. I was like, man, like I would do these lists. You know, this sounds great. It sounds great as a base force, right? You know, just as
I mean, our original plan had been for me to do a list as well, but unfortunately, life got in the way, and I wasn't able to complete it. But I mean, Rob chose these legions using this box. Partially because there's certain legions that, you know, Mark III, you think Imperial Fist, Iron Warriors, but it's kind of easy to write a list. You know, like these boxes are ideal for something like Iron Warriors.
Yeah.
But it's fairly easy. You just have a load of attack squads, a Warsmith, you know, to radio with the autocannons and the Land Raiders, and you've got all your fucking anti-tank there because they're +1 to wound fucking tanks, blah 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 blah. You know, so there's certain legions that these are great for, and that's great, but there's no point really talking about them.
They're obvious. They're
because
so
they kind of build themselves. And the one I was going to do Space Wolves.
Yeah.
I just didn't get a chance to finish the list.
I do want to say about Space Wolves actually, and perhaps, you know, if you had any initial ideas about it, probably worth sharing them. But I think when I was looking at Space Wolves, because I knew that you'd want to do it, so I was like, I'll have a look at it. But I think the issue that you got with the Wolves is that it becomes quite prohibitively expensive if you're doing it on a budget, which is that you've got to buy like the Forge World upgrades. Like there will be 3D printed versions, but there aren't. But I tend to find with 3D printers that they go down the more generic route rather than going kind of too Legion specific. I'm sure though there will be Space Wolves like shields and axes out there, but you know, £20-30 for 5 shields.
Just 30 quid. It's insane. So my list had kind of been, and this box set does actually lend itself really well to Space Wolves, but it was basically going to be because Grey Slayers, Grey Stalkers can take Land Raiders as dedicated transport. So you take the Pale Hunter, I think it is, which makes them line, but Pale Hunter only allows 1 heavy support slot. But that doesn't matter because you stick your 2 Deradios in there, and then all your Land Raiders are dedicated transport. So you stick all your squads in Land Raiders, and the ones left over, you just have them running down the field. Like it is literally perfect for Space Wolves.
Yeah. But
exactly like you said, if you start sticking shields on them, it's 30 quid from Forge World for five fucking shields.
It's insane. It's nuts.
5 shields. It's absolutely. I mean, obviously you get axes in there and stuff as well, but it is a fucking insane amount of money for add-ons.
Yeah, which I think that if we did an episode on sky's the limit, you know, you've got you're a consultant, a hedge fund or whatever, then fine. But
you don't have to run them with shields. I can't remember what Stalkers, Slayers. I think it's Slayers come with shields, Stalkers don't. I could have got that the wrong way around, but so you don't have to run them with shields, but you probably kind of want to, especially if you're running them across the open. But they are so quick. Their rules are so quick on foot that they are literally on top of you. And then I had for anti-tank, I just had melter gun squads because you can just run them across the fucking across the field. So yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to write a list, but I'd say like this box set, don't just take these lists. There's so many options out there. This is just giving you a kind of taster of what you can do.
100%. I mean, what would be great in the comments below is if you guys, you know, come up with some lists of your own, either of the legions that we did today or of the other legions, the other 15, and see if you can create a list from those, you know, 60 Marines, from those 2 Deradios, 2 Land Raiders, We've given you probably a budget of around 100, 150 pound, I think, to play with on top of that. Whereas before we were really, really strict with our budget. I think this time we can play around with it a little bit more, to be able to add a bit more flavour in. So yeah, write your list below. Tell us how you would go about financing it. Where you would get those bits from. If you know of any bits already, write in the comments below. We'd absolutely love to see those lists. And yeah, I think, and then perhaps if people do that, if they're a Patreon and send us via the messaging, by the messages, or email it to us, maybe we can do a follow-up show next month about showing your guys' lists about creating some of the, and we'll choose our top three. That could be some content for October as well, because we'd love to do this again. It's always fun looking at. I think one of the things that I like, being a hobbyist but also a gamer, is looking at people's photos of their full army at 3K and going, "Oh, how have they built that army? Like, what have they done? What have they included?" So yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it at that, and then we'll go on to our final few slides, which is our thanks to our top tier Patreons. As you can see, I think we're on 79 top tier Patreons there, which is absolutely nuts. So thank you, guys. You are true friends of the show, and you allow us, like all our Patreons, to continue to make content that we absolutely love. So Jared Rowe, Jace Constable, Blake or Steve, Leon Haynes, Edwin Barnett, John Hathaway, Adria Arcos, Andrew Gomes, TSC Paints, Charles Hawkins, Eric Brennan, Chris Keith, Harley Mann, Ben 422, Flinty, Peter Jan van Ucht, Joe, Henrik Ramussen, Lurpy Wargaming, Alistair Coxon. Lots of new names there. Absolutely brilliant. Alex Freeman, Mike, Jared Cope, Benjamin Lengacker, Isaac Halstead, Taranis, Andy Dudley, Stephen Daniel, Gareth Morris, Jack Stillwell, Legion Minis, Lewis Hibbins, Mark Gallagher, Unexplained Miniatures, Matt Fuller, Keontes George, Ethan Brawl, Big T Painting, Callum Falkus, Clayton Unruh, WH Black Panzer, who just received literally a few days ago his Castle Crusher model, Craig the Celt, James McAvoy, Kevin Abramow, Nicholas Drax, Andrew G, James Apostate Terrain, That Guy Lazar, David Walker. That Guy Lazar made some great points to us via the messages. I must follow up his message. So thank you so much for messaging us a little while ago. Saigon Sadler, Chris Levitt, Julian, Mark Ainsworth, Dale Barnett, Kerry Love, Alex Robinson, Tom Spear, Hammer and Nails 40K, Richard Harris, Chthonic Waterbeast, Simon Whitehouse, Peter King, Thomas Clark, Ashley Bowley, Pete Day, Al, Randy Overland, Thomas Lake, Igor Pavlotsky, Bradley Schlutz, Patrick Greenstreet, Mike Dorset Wolf, Richard Willis, Tom Hayward, Ben Robinson, Ben Ide, Gorkrow, John McCardle, and Thomas Silverstrand. Thank you ever so much, guys. We really, really appreciate it. Our top tier patrons, thank you. And then just our final few sponsors. So Bits Monster, getting all your bits. Guys based in Northern Ireland, make sure if you need bits, especially with this new kit coming out, you want to add an extra radio to your force, you want to add an extra Land Raider to your force, then go and check those guys out, because they split up boxes and then they kind of sell the pieces. So yeah, definitely worth. See if they got Thunder Hammers as well. I might be able to pick up some Thunder Hammers from those, because we've talked about those a lot today. Who's up next, please, Lee? We've got Curtain Games, so and Oakhampton Games as well. Those guys have been supporting us for a little while. If you're looking to pick up your new battle group, then make sure you order it from them. I got my Leviathan box from those guys actually, and it was really well discounted. And it came literally, I think either the day it was went out right, or the day before. They did a great job. It was on time, and no hassle at all. Really good condition. And then finally, we've got Cryptic Cavern, local games store to us, been with us from the very beginning, from the very start, as well. Those guys have also got an event coming up, so make sure that you check out. If you just go to their events page, the events tab on their website, they've got a Horus Heresy event coming up as well. So make sure to check that one out. And last but not least, those are all our information. Make sure you use hashtag Heresy Hammer on your Instagram posts. We know that hashtags aren't as powerful as they used to be, but we do follow that for every show that we do. So make sure that you do use it. We really appreciate it if you give us a subscribe. We're really interested to hear about your comments, and please make sure you share it. We get bigger by you guys sharing it. So if you like the show, think others will like it, make sure you share the episode. Really appreciate it. Any lists, reviews that you want to send us, heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, there is hours and hours more heresy content available for you on our Patreon from as little as £3 a month. £3 a month. And you guys allow us to do what we love to do, which is talk non-stop heresy as well. So make sure that you go check that out. As for us, that's all we've got time for today. So we shall see you next month for our next heresy show. So take care, guys. See you soon.
Yes, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.